Another Lenoir and Caldwell County history video taken from VHS tape with Bruce Craig and John Hawkins.
Welcome to Caldwell County Today. My name is John Hawkins and I'm the director of the Caldwell Heritage Museum. And with me again today is Bruce Craig. Bruce is certainly no stranger to these programs because we've been here 5 times, Bruce, is that right?
This is our 5th program.
Actually, Bruce has labeled this as number 6 video.
And we're going to be talking about Caldwell County artifacts, Caldwell County memorabilia again today as we have previously. So Bruce, I'm just going to go ahead and let you start wherever you want to start.
Well, you know, we've had some good information that has come to you and has come to me. One of the little bits of information, if you will hold this one up right here, we introduced these things as tokens that were given out during the war as a rationing. All right, we found out that if you had a coupon that you were going to buy maybe $1 worth of gas, which in those days was pretty cheap, all right, you only wanted 80 cents. They didn't give you change back. They gave you these little tokens. And this token, a red and a blue, it's the only 2 I've ever seen. One could be a nickel, one could be a dime, or one could be a quarter. We don't know that denomination, but we do know that it was given back in change, and that came from a guy that came by to see you and actually gave you one of these things.
A gentleman named Ed Green brought that in.
So, that's, it just adds to the story and makes it a little more complete. So, folks, like I say, we appreciate those phone calls. We appreciate the people visiting the museum up here to tell different things. So, just keep the phone calls coming.
Right. And while you're getting ready, Bruce, let me add to that a lot of these people call me and tell me things, and sometimes my memory slips a little bit. So if we're not mentioning it, it doesn't mean that we don't appreciate it. It just means it slipped my mind at the moment.
Well, I make a lot of notes at the house, and sometimes I write something down. I don't know who called me, and I'm trying to make better notes now. Okay. We're going to show a couple of pictures. We're not trying to get in on Joe Hartley's thing, but this one, I was real intrigued with this picture. Joe did not know where this was. All right, I think I'm 99.9% right, which that's pretty sure. All right, this would be on West Avenue. It was a filling station, one of the early filling stations. On this side of the picture, you will see just a little bit of a building which was a wooden structure known as Lenoir Shoe Shop.
Okay.
And on the other side, you see a little bit of a brick building that jotted out from a big brick building. The little brick building was known as Braswell Shoe Store for many years. Okay. And then the big brick building was the Chevrolet place. It started out as Fry Chevrolet, and it became Fred Gaddy's Chevrolet. It just came back to me, John. It took me a while, but I got it.
Okay. What street were they on, Bruce?
They were on West Avenue.
Okay.
And in behind it, you see a little bit of a couple of letters, but it's the Johnson and Company, who was Mac Johnson, M.C. Johnson, and he owned the place back in the back there that sold feed and seed and livestock, and he eventually started the Oldsmobile place back there.
Okay.
Right off of, if you'd come off of Willow Street up into there.
And about what year is that picture?
Now you got me. I think I got it figured out where it's at, but the date, I'm not real sure.
Perhaps somebody can tell us.
I'm going to guess somewhere in the 30s.
All right.
And I could be wrong or right. We can't ever tell.
Perhaps somebody out there knows the exact month, day, and year even.
Now this next picture, this came from Conley Eisenhower's son. And he called me about this picture, and I went by and picked up the original and made some copies for him and for me. And you want to read the caption that we have on this?
All right, it says on the left is Dewey Roosevelt, who was born about 1905. That's Dewey Roosevelt Eisenhower, born about 1905, and his brother Conley Bruce Eisenhower, born about 1907. And the location is West Avenue between the Caldwell Creamery and Depot Street in an area known as Little Chicago in Lenoir. And the date of the photo is known, but it's probably, but the operation of the business was between 1929 and 1931. So I didn't know we had a Little Chicago in Lenoir.
Well, I think the reason for that was it was a pretty rough area. Let's see, it would be to the left side of this picture. There was a business there called, known as the Caldwell Wine Shop.
Okay.
So, you know, they sold alcoholic beverages down there. And I understand back in the early days there were a few people stabbed and a couple people shot down there. That's the reason it became that Little Chicago down there. So.
Okay. Perhaps we might capitalize. You know, there's a popular movie right now called Chicago. Maybe we could have one about Lenoir and call it Little Chicago.
Yeah. Now, John, this next picture that we're looking at is a classroom of a bunch of ladies, and this was actually on March the 30th, March of 1930 is when it was. And this is inside the Lenoir High School, that building down there, and they were in a first aid class. And they had somebody laying in the bed that they were to, you know, administer or whatever, or learn from or whatever. And we know most of these ladies' names. So your mother or you might still be living that might be in here.
Okay, standing left to right, Lucille Spencer, Miss Weaver, Thelma Ray, Louise Clark, Mamie Holman, Ruby Tomlinson, Margaret Greer, Mildred Melton, Nancy, is it Pennell, Louise Honer, Colleen Richards. The patient is Eloise Hip, and seated is May Michael, Annie German, Myrtle Story, Esther Madison, and Faye Annis. Yes, I know May Michael, who is now May Beaver, and I probably know some of these other ladies too, if I knew their married names.
Yeah, well, Mamie Holman was the one, when I found this picture, that, you know, it really stood out to me, and I knew I recognized her, and it was my aunt who became Mamie Tigg, who married Bill Tigg, that ran the radio at the sheriff's department for so many years.
And well, we certainly hope that there are people out there who recognize a relative in that picture. Well, Bruce, it looks like you have some dinnerware here. I hope you've prepared dinner for us this evening.
Well, actually, I had to wash one of these out before I could bring it, because we keep it on our counter and we keep bananas in it or apples in it or something, you know, so I had to wash it before I brought it. But it's amazing at what some of these people put out for advertisements so people could take it home. And one that put out the most was Tigg Furniture Company, was in Lenoir. It would be, what is that street? Still, it's West Avenue.
Okay.
And it would be on as you're coming up. Beside of it would have been the bakery, and then in the corner was the State Theater.
Okay.
It's in that little corner.
Almost on the square.
Yeah, where that monument is that to
the Vietnam Memorial, I believe, is there.
Yes.
I believe there's a lawyer's office in there now, isn't there?
Yeah. But that was Tigg Furniture Company for many, many years. I bought my first bedroom suit there when my wife and I got married. Now, they done a lot of different things and styles. A lot that they done was in mixing bowls. And we have a couple of different versions of it. All right. This one right here, and see what makes it so good is it's written inside. John, if you'll hold that one up. Now, if you see the difference, is one is just Tigg Furniture Company of Lenoir, North Carolina, and the other one is incorporated. So they must have been getting into the fact that they need to become incorporated to keep somebody from suing them and taking their house. That's the way I understand some of that, you know.
Right.
This one right here is a real popular bowl. It's called Watt Pottery. And sometimes in some of this stuff it can get real expensive, especially ones that are advertising. See right here, this one says, save money at Tig Furniture Company on the Square, Lenoir, North Carolina. And the way I understand the way their writing went, this is one of their earliest pieces. And this Watt pottery right here was put out before, and that's also Watt pottery. But it was put out, this was the first ones put out.
And I see there's some platters also from Tig.
Oh, they made a bunch of the platters, and I understand that I think I'm missing one of them. And they call it a turkey platter because they put the picture of a turkey on there.
Right, Thanksgiving.
Yeah, for Thanksgiving. But you know, you could buy a little dinette set or something, and they would give you one of these to take home.
That was going to be one of my questions, is how did you get one of those platters?
Well, you bought something.
Okay.
You know, they always say it's free. I don't know that anything is free.
No free lunch. Huh?
No free lunch. Now this one is pretty unusual, and it's an early one because what this is advertising is the North Carolina tree, is it? It's the longleaf pine.
Yes.
And it does say on the back, compliments of Tig Furniture Company, Lenoir, North Carolina.
So you had to turn that one over to see it.
Yeah. Now the next one is still a turkey platter, but it's a different pattern. It's kind of got like a Greek key pattern around it. And it also says compliments of Tig Furniture Company of Lenoir, North Carolina. And then we have one that has a solid color around the outside edge of it in kind of a greenish blue. And it also says compliments of Tig Furniture Company. So they made these things each time that they would come out with them after they'd give out so many, they would change it a little bit. And there is one of these that I'm missing. I have seen it, but I hadn't been able to get my hands on it yet. You know.
And of course, Tig was not the only one who did it, and Tig did other things also besides platters.
Right. They also done yardsticks. And this gives their phone number of Plaza 46211. So with the Plaza, we know that this came out in the 50s or
Late 50s, right.
early 60s. Yeah. So these places put out a lot of different things, and they just done it, you know, so people would remember where they bought their things from. Right. But, and like you say, they were not the only ones that done the platters.
There's one similar to one that Tig had done too, the longleaf pine again.
Yeah, but these people put their name on the front.
Right.
And actually it was right behind, it was on Mulberry Street, about 2 doors down from E. Shaw Furniture Company.
Right. W.B. Lindsay.
W.B. Lindsay.
I believe they were located about where H&R Block is now, aren't they? Close to it anyway.
No, this was in the place that has, the big building that has the church in it now.
Oh, okay.
That
the
was
Trinity Church.
Right, that was W.B. Lindsay. And I think also we have, this is kind of a plastic celluloid-like stuff, but it's and you don't like to think about it, but it has a beer opener on it, and it also has a bottle opener, so you could open a soft drink or a beer.
Right.
But that is from W.B. Lindsay Furniture Company. So you see here, they put out platters or yardsticks, mixing bowls, platters, or keychains, or you know, just whatever. But these places put out a lot of different things.
One more platter, I believe. Another turkey. No, that's not turkeys, is it?
No, this is pheasants.
Pheasants, right.
And that's the only thing I can figure out was Tig had the market cornered on turkey platters, so D.D. Sudworth put out a pheasant platter. This is the only one I have. I understand there's at least one more, and but this was compliments of D.D. Sudworth Furniture Company in Lenoir, North Carolina. Now this was when he was on Harper Avenue at the foot of what was known as Town Hill.
Right.
And the building across the street from where he was is still standing. He had it to work on appliances, but his main store was on the right as you went down that hill and got to the foot.
And we might mention that D.D. Sudworth is still in business, but I believe they live out in the Whitnall area now.
Yeah, they actually moved to West Avenue in where the antique store is now.
Okay.
And here's a yardstick that is on 812 West Avenue,
All right.
Northwest in Lenoir, North Carolina. Now this is when they were on Harper Avenue. They had a number of 754-6121. So
So they've been in at least 3 different locations that we know of, and
yeah,
perhaps Bob might call us and tell us if 3 is all.
I think that's the only one.
Okay.
And I understand Bob has both of those platters and maybe a few other things that we...
Bob, that sounds like a hint to me.
Well, he's got, Dee Dee Sadworth had several daughters that would like to get their hands on that platter.
Okay.
You know, what amazes me about a lot of these people is that their family was in the business and they would give these things away, but they never saved any for themselves.
Right, okay.
And so then it becomes a fact that they learn about it, know it's there, and then they
want it, right?
Then
okay.
It's hard to find these things. I mean to tell you, I beat the bushes every day, and sometimes I win and sometimes I lose. You know.
Okay, it looks like some businesses also had some smaller items.
Yes. A lot of these businesses would put out what is known as a coin purse, where you would carry your change in. And the one that John is holding is Earp's Radio and TV Service, which was on Virginia Street.
Right.
It was where Mr. Lackey started out with his dog veterinarian.
Veterinarian, okay.
Yeah. Matter of fact, where he used to bathe them in the back, I tore that out with a sledgehammer one time. It was
Okay.
a bunch of concrete. This one right here is the 75th anniversary of Mutual Savings and Loan. And this change purse here is on Citizens Savings and Loan. Now, the key factor to me is that these businesses are no more.
Right.
They are gone. And if these things are not saved, then they can be forgotten. So
Right.
anything and everything that we can save on these businesses, put together into a collection, then it just gives a lot of people that their grandkids can come up here and see this and, and enjoy it.
Okay, what else do you have there that's...
Well, I've got one other bottle opener, and this one right here was on the Mutual Savings and
Mutual
Loan.
savings, right?
Now, let's see if we can figure out where this was at the time. Okay. This is when they opened their little secondary place there in Whitnell
Okay.
at the Fairway Shopping Center. It still says, it says Norwood Street, Lenoir, North Carolina, and gives
Right.
their phone number, but it says at Fairway Shopping Center.
Okay.
And so, they opened a new branch and put it there. But now Mutual they put out an apron, they put out a hat, they put out coasters, matchbooks, they put out a lot of things over the
Right.
years. They started out where Red's men's shop was,
Okay.
beside of the antique store. Then they moved out on the corner of South Main Street, where there's nothing in that building right now. And then eventually they built the big building down there that is now a medical park
Right.
on Harper Avenue.
And am I correct that they merged with CCB when CCB came to town, or do I have that confused with someone else?
Now, they did merge with somebody, but I'm not sure of who
Well,
it
I'm
was.
sure there's someone who will correct us on that.
Yeah. Now, also, I left this this coin purse out right here. I found this thing, and it's real stiff, but it's made totally out of leather. Now, it does open, but it is very hard to read what's on there. But it does say Torrance Filling Station, dial 4-9118, Lenoir, North Carolina.
Okay, back before the days when we had to dial the PL.
Absolutely.
Prefix.
Now, where was Torrance Filling Station located?
I believe it was out on West Harper Avenue, wasn't it?
At the corner of Harper Avenue and Virginia Street at
Right.
the stoplight, where Yoke Fella is down in the bottom down there. But that
Okay.
filling station closed, maybe 3 years ago or something. The two
Okay.
sons, decided to close it down. So,
All right.
All right. Now, some other things that was handed out was little straight screwdrivers that a lot of people, they would carry them in their pockets.
Right.
And you see, it's an advertisement of different businesses. Yours is on
Ray's Radio and TV Service, Lenoir, and the telephone number is 754-9547. Says if your TV doesn't play, call Ray.
And that was located down on 18 Bypass, right behind the Dairy Frosty Freeze,
Okay.
kind of between there and Western Carolina Electric Supply, a little
All right.
building back
All
in
right.
there.
Yes.
Kinda
Now,
looked
now you help me. Yes.
almost looked like an A-frame type building.
Yes. I
And
remember
that was
now.
Ray's Music, okay. Then right beside of him was the Western Carolina Electric Supply, Lenoir, North Carolina, phone number 754-5311. And these things also came with a magnet. The ends of these things, a lot of them, and they could pick up a screw if they needed
Right.
to where it fell down into something.
Very handy little implements to have, as well as nice advertising for the company.
Absolutely. And this is one that just says Blue Ridge Electric Membership Corporation. Fix it electrically.
Right. Blue Ridge Electric, of course, supplies electricity to a great part of the county now.
Right. Now, a lot of times people would hand out these little, they'd have a bottle opener, a nail file, and what they called a knife. You know, I mean, it was never very sharp, but I've got several of these from several different companies. You could put it on your keychain
Right.
and carry it with you.
Who's that one from?
This one is the Bank of Lenoir, the Time Loan Department.
Okay.
So that's a pretty good find from the Bank of Lenoir. And also, we had this in an earlier program, but I think Mr. Kincaid cut us out on this, so that's one
Okay.
reason I brought this. This is compliments of the Bank of Lenoir, and it says Lenoir, North Carolina, established in 1894, the old reliable.
Right.
And it was known as a bullet pencil. See, it looks like a bullet, but you could pull it apart and turn it like this, and then it became a
Right.
writing tool. So I've got several of these of businesses that are in Lenoir. Now, I've never seen a bottle opener like this. It's kind of a weird bottle opener, but it does say Smith Crossroads Incorporated, Lenoir, North Carolina. It actually has a piece of wood or something in the back of it. So that was a good little find right there. So,
Well, Bruce, I must predate you a little bit. I have seen bottle openers like that,
okay.
but I always thought they were a little awkward to use, but I never had to use one, so maybe that.
Well, you know, it's kind of handy for the hand. It would be hard to put a lever action on it, but still it's small enough that you could
Right.
carry it in your pocket. So, and you do have a couple of years on me. You
Well,
just had a
that-
birthday.
We won't get into that.
We won't get into that. Okay. Now, this was a neat little find.
Union Bus Terminal, Lenoir, yes, remember it very well.
This was beside of City Service Cleaners.
Right.
And the bus used to come through there and come around. It would come in one driveway and come around and park, and you'd have your luggage in there. They had it was just like a train station or something,
Right.
you know, even though it was a bus station. But I actually don't even know where I came across this at. But the Union Bus, and I didn't realize it was called the Union at the time. I just knew it as the
Right.
bus depot.
Right,
you
bus
know.
depot.
And so it got moved a couple of times, once across town, then back over, and now,
I remember riding the bus a few times, Bruce, and the time I guess it was the most memorable was when I left Lenoir to go into the Air Force. And I left from Union Bus Terminal. And of course, it wasn't the bus terminal's fault, but I regretted that trip a few times.
well, like we say, a lot of these places put out a lot of different things. So we had a bottle opener from Smith Crossroads, and here we have two different yardsticks, and we notice it's in the same place, but it has a different address. They changed the numbers. The lower one is 102 North Boulevard, Lenoir, North Carolina. But the top one is 100 North Boulevard. So where did they come up with that extra 2 at, do you think? Did they build a building in between somewhere and make it that?
Don't you suspect maybe that they just renumbered the residents? They do that periodically.
And John, I have to, especially the wide one right there, I went and had a sit-down talk with Francis Smith, who married Frederick Shaw, who passed away here several weeks ago. But we sit and talk for probably an hour about Smith Crossroads, and she gave me some matchbook covers and some key rings and the yardstick, and and she does have some few other things, so I've got to go back and see her. But she was real informative, and I really enjoyed the talk. And that's what's so good about some of this is the actual families that I can go sit and talk. I've got 3 or 4 that I've got to go see, but I keep running into things, other things that I'm doing. So it's hard.
Frances is always a delight when you talk with her.
Oh, yeah, and she is real informative too. All right, I don't remember this. I have heard of it, but I just don't remember it. Here is a light switch cover that says, "Switch to Lenoir Electric Repair Company, phone Plaza 4, 4556, Lenoir, North Carolina." And it has a thermometer on it. Now, and also, which is a little bit on the risque side, I guess you would call it, wouldn't you?
Not by today's standards.
Not by today's standard, no. It's probably missing a few things. But what these are these are ink blotters. That when you would write, you would take these things and use them to blot your ink.
Right.
And they did have a place in Lenoir, but they also had one in Hickory. And this one is advertising 2 businesses.
Lenoir Electric Repair Company and Lenoir Machine Shop.
And then we also have another place that put out a lot of these things. I have seen other ones on these things right here, and a lot of them have calendars on them that are dated. And John, what's this one on?
This one is Irving's Men's Shop, and I just see something here that I had forgotten, that they had a store in Statesville as well as Lenoir.
Absolutely. They had 2 stores. There used to be a Harville's clothing store here in Lenoir.
Right.
But they also had one in Hickory.
Right.
Now this one here is January of '54. What is yours?
Mine is November of '53.
So, I've got some '53s and '54s.
So I guess the idea was to get you to come back in every month and get an ink blotter. Was that it?
I guess, and buy another shirt or a sport coat or whatever. But these things are still around because people didn't use them all and throw them away. And that's what happens is a lot of these things were used and then they were thrown away.
And I believe Irving's was located on the corner of West Avenue and Church Street. Is that right? Mm-hmm. And I remember in the basement of it was Raymond Triplett's West Avenue Furniture and Music Company.
Absolutely.
So they used to buy records in there too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's, by the way, that's the old Y.D. Moore building that Irving's Men's Shop was in too.
Yeah, it has the date on top of 1913. I can't recall the man's name. He lives up in Mulberry. But he called me one night and asked me if I would like to have these things. Now, what this is a salt and pepper shaker. And this one says Fire Chief, and yours says
Sky Chief.
And yours has the company on it, on the back that it came from.
Okay, from the Norwood Service Station on North Main Street. And again, a telephone number 49412, no plaza, no 75.
So these are real early. I think his mother saved salt and pepper shakers.
Oh, okay.
And so I really appreciate that. That was a neat find.
And some more.
But this is on the Esso.
Right.
Mine says Esso Extra. And
this just says Esso.
Okay, so this is the premium and yours is the regular. But this is B.A. Bolick, distributors of Esso products, Lenoir, North Carolina.
Okay.
And if my memory serves me correctly, it was somewhere in Valmead.
All right.
E-Step Oil was the same place, and I don't know whether this one owned it first or E-Step owned it, but I do have a salt and pepper shaker on E-Step oil, but it's somewhere in my house that I put that only I would know where it's at. And I keep remembering that I forget those things, you know.
I see. Now, who's the older of the two?
I don't know. Oh, you are. But you see, I'm catching you fast. These things right here were put out by Broad Hill several years ago. And what it was when you would open a drink bottle, instead you couldn't reseal them.
Right.
So they gave you, and there's a lot of colors in this. There's the blue and the red and the green and the yellow and the white. And so this is Broad Hill Furniture Factories in Lenoir, North Carolina. So I've got a bunch of these things right here that people have given me over the years. And then some people would actually put out little, they in change or whatever, or they would want you to come back, so they would hand you a little token.
Right, okay.
Now, this is on the smokehouse.
Right.
Now, is this the one that was out in Gamel on the old road out there?
That was what I was going to ask you. Is it the one out there?
That's the only smokehouse that I know of.
Only one I know of also.
And you see, they came in different denominations and different colors. This one is 25 cents. And John, yours is 5 cents.
Right.
And we actually have them in 50 cents and 10 cents and even a 1 cent. So there's tokens from different businesses. Now, this one, we're going to ask the question of, where was it? We think we know, but we're not sure. We do know that it was on Creekway Drive.
Right.
And we do know that it was called Safeway Food. And it was 811 Creekway Drive, Lenoir, North Carolina. And they came in different denominations. They had 50 cent. Yours is a
25, right.
And here's a 5 cent one. And then a 10 cent one. And they also had a 1 cent one.
And these were sales incentives to get people into their store, I'm sure.
I think they just handed them out to you so that you could come back, and that way when you bought something, you would get 25 cents off. It was kind of like a coupon,
Right.
You know. And actually those from that store came off of eBay and came from somewhere, if my memory serves me correctly, was out of Michigan.
Okay.
Now, these things wind up in
Right.
Michigan, you know, is just it's phenomenal about these things. Now, one of the better stores or the oldest store.
The oldest store, your oldest business.
Oldest business that's in Lenoir is Bernhardt Siegel.
Right.
Okay. I think I can't remember if I showed this one time, but who's the lady that wrote the book on the church up there?
Lucy McCarl?
Lucy McCarl. But she called me one day, and I went up there and picked this up. And so, but this is a real early piece for the simple reason that it gives all three of their businesses. See, they had Bernhardt Siegel and Company since 1829, but they had a furniture store, a hardware store, and a building supply.
Right.
Now, we know where the hardware store was. It's still there. They also, in the back, they had an industrial hardware part back there at one time. Okay. Their building supply was down across from Lenoir High School Band Building on Harper Avenue. And actually, we have this is a nail apron. I've got it all folded up right now, but it's Bernhardt Siegel, and it does say that it's 314 West Harper Avenue, and this has a plaza number.
Right.
And it was in Lenoir, North Carolina. Now, one bit of information I would like to find out is the furniture store was located in a different place than the hardware store. Now, this is my understanding, but I don't know where it was. And one other thing, if somebody can help me out, this is one thing that has eluded me, is a yardstick from Bernhardt Siegel in Lenoir.
Okay.
I'm missing 2 yardsticks. One is Globe Hardware and the other one is Bernhardt and Siegel. And I know Bernhardt and Siegel put out 3 different yardsticks. Lucy thought she was going to help me out, but she couldn't find one.
All right. Bruce, it looks like you have a couple of bottles here that might be interesting.
Well, I've come up with these in just the last little bit. The one that you're holding there is that is a real early Lenoir drugstore. And Tom Bailey and his wife, I was in there one day and they gave me that to go in my collection. So I appreciate that. And I had a gentleman, I seen him in the Winn-Dixie one day and he really liked what we were doing. He said, I think I got something for you, so come by the house. And he lived right over there on Miller Hill. So I went, and matter of fact, he's a Craig. And
Well, we won't hold that against him.
no. But anyhow, I went to his house, and this is one of the, along with Lenoir Drug, was one of the earlier stores, drugstores. When Earl Tate came into town, he opened 2 drugstores. And this one is actually called Tate's Drugstore. And it says that it has prescription first, and it is opposite of the courthouse. So it was across the street from the Caldwell County Courthouse. Now it just says Lenoir. Oh, it does have a phone number of 355. And this is oil of wintergreen. I do know this bottle does smell, you know.
Right, wintergreen has a nice smell to
I
it.
carried that in the car, and my wife kept saying, "What is that smell?" I said, "Oh, it's oil of wintergreen."
Okay, are you getting ready to go into the sewing business here, Bruce?
Well, Courtney's put out a lot of different things, and this is on Courtney's clothing store. And if you will hold that right there, this is a little sewing kit that they would hand out for you to put in your purse. For, you know, most time it was women that carried those things. You didn't find many men that carried them in those days. But this is a sewing kit. It's got a couple of needles in it and some thread and some other things in there that Courtney's handed out. There's about 4 or 5 different colors of thread in there also.
Right. And this must be about 1941, Bruce, because it says Caldwell County's 100th anniversary.
Okay, so then we know when that was handed out then, don't we?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And along with that, they also handed out this. Now, it's hard to see this little thing that's sticking out to one side, but this is known as a
Needle threader.
needle threader. This is for can't see very well. You could put this through the eye, put the thread through this and pull it back through, and it would thread that thing just like that.
You know, Bruce, if I have to thread a needle now, I have to have one of those things to do it. So
I have to have somebody hold my hand still. This needle threader came from Miss Pearson up on North Main Street. That was the antique lady for years and years.
okay.
Nell Pearson.
Nell Pearson.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And this came from out of her house.
By the way, Bruce, have you noticed that they're redoing her house now? They're going to restore that house, I understand.
Yeah, I understand. There was a lady bought that, and she was hunting pictures, and they called me, and they called you. And
Right.
so far, we haven't come up with a picture. Courtney's also put out a fan. This is a little folding fan. It says, since 1872, ladies and men's wear, 112 and 114 West Avenue, phone 45211. So this was before they put the plaza to it. And also this was when they had 2 locations. And a lot of people, and I never realized it, but if you look, both of those buildings where Lenoir Drugstore was and the Courtney building, both of those were the Courtneys.
Okay.
They had businesses in both of those.
And a very pretty picture on the fan, too.
Yeah, I thought
Rural
maybe it
scene.
might have been the church up in out in Gamel that's back up in there that's so old.
Little John's.
Yeah, but it's not.
I don't believe it's Little John's,
No.
and I doubt that it's a local church. It'd be nice if it were, wouldn't it?
Actually, that church is in Massachusetts.
Oh, okay. It looks like a New England setting.
Now, I have to really thank Jan Pennell. I was in her house one day, and she showed me these things. And it took me a while to get them, but, you know, I guess she got tired of me begging, and she went ahead and let me have them. You know, they had a remnant shop in there that they would sell fabric.
Right.
And so this is a pair of scissors that actually has, what is written on there, John? This says Courtney's Department Store, a good place to shop. But you could buy fabric and they would cut that fabric with these scissors and roll it up and give it to you.
Right.
So it's hard to find something like that with the name of the business on there. So that was a...
Bruce, I'd be willing to bet they cut only maybe about an inch and then ripped it.
Now that's, I have heard of that.
I think I remember my mother buying fabric and they did that. That was the only way they could be sure they were getting a straight cut on it.
Now this also came out of Courtney's clothing store. Now it does not have a name on it, but there was a man working there the day that they shut this store down, and his name is Bob King. And most people knew him from working in department stores. His wife Jean worked at Belk's for years and years and years. And he confiscated this out of a closet when they were closing the doors.
Okay.
So we do know that it did come out of Courtney's. This is called a string holder. You would have a ball of string inside and you'd raffle off so much and wrap a package.
Okay.
And this is a cast iron and it's called the beehive. It looks like a beehive. So that was a real good one. And I actually have another one of those that looks exactly like it that came out of McGowan Hardware, which maybe could have come from Lenoir Hardware because those guys worked at Lenoir Hardware.
I remember, Bruce, when they used to wrap packages and put string around them. Now they put things in paper bags and you carry it out of the store.
J.C. Penney's, they used, in a lot of those places, they had a paper roller.
Right.
And they'd roll off so much paper, wrap it up, and put string around it.
I remember that.
And I have the paper roller from Collins Department Store, and I have the paper roller from J.C. Penney's.
Right. What's that? That's a nice little piece.
Well, I have no idea. Some guy brought me this one day. It's a jewelry box, and it does say Lenoir, North Carolina, in real fine letters down there. And all it is a little cedar box that you could put a small amount. You could put some necklaces here and rings over on that side. But now, you know, a lot of these businesses, especially two, put out the little, what they call a miniature cedar box for clothes if they had the big one. But they'd hand them to all of the girls that were graduating
right.
from Lenoir High School and maybe from other schools.
I think the county schools as well.
But I have two, and one of them is from W. Shaw Furniture, and the other one is from, what's the hardware store down across from Lenoir News Topic that used to be up there in town?
I'm having a senior moment,
Oh,
Bruce.
I got a big one right now. I don't know why I can't remember that hardware store. But anyhow, I've got one of those.
All right.
I'll sit at the house and watch this on TV and say, "You dummy, it was that," you know.
Are you thinking about Shields?
That's it. Hey.
Okay.
Now who's the oldest?
I don't know. I forgot.
Yeah. But even businesses put out coffee cups.
Right.
And this was Huffines Insurance Company that was up on the corner of Mulberry
Street, right.
and East Avenue.
Just says Mulberry Street. I'm not sure exactly where
Well,
the
it was on
building
that corner there.
Right.
It was the one that burnt down. There's a parking lot in there now.
Okay.
You know. And then I forgot when we were showing the Earps radio and TV service, but he handed out this little Zippo lighter. And
I remember a lot of businesses used to hand out lighters, so there probably are more around that you just haven't got your hands on yet.
well, it really amazes me that the more I find, the more I realize that the more there are out there.
Right.
And so then we've had several things. We had a paperweight and a couple other things on this same business. This is Lenoir Funeral Home, and they had a number of Plaza 43441. And this was when they were out on West Harper Avenue in the old house out there. So a lot of people handed out ashtrays.
Right, and I don't think any of us are a bit anxious to use this business, do you?
No, sir. No, sir. But other businesses did put out some of these ashtrays, and I don't know why, but I forgot the one on Lenoir Auto Parts. I got one from...
Okay, but you do have another one there, don't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is W. Shaw Furniture Company.
Okay.
Now that's where it's on the corner right there. If you think of Huffines Insurance Company, this is right across the street, still on Mulberry Street, but it's where Caldwell Motors was for years. And
yes, I believe we mentioned W. Shaw Furniture a little bit earlier.
yeah.
And I think you have something else there from Shaw?
Yeah, I've got a yardstick, and all of these places would make these yardsticks for you to hand, to hand out to people to take home. And I go into houses, and first thing I do is look in a closet, because it's usually in the corner of a closet is where these things are standing, And people actually forget they have them. And so if they can help us out with some of these, there's hundreds of them that people put out in this county,
Okay, so look in those corners of the closets, folks, and keep Bruce in mind. In fact, this might be a good time for you to tell them your phone number in case they do find one in the corner of the closet.
Okay, the number is 754-7330. Now, if you forget the number and you want to look it in the phone book, just be sure and look under T. Bruce Craig, and that way you'll get me instead of the one in Green Acres.
Okay, the one in Green Acres probably doesn't collect things like this, does he?
This man helps me, believe it or not, and his name is Bruce Craig, and he has helped me a bunch. He's given me some real nice stuff.
Well, good.
So he's been a friend as well as taking some of my phone calls.
All right.
So now we had 3 hotels in Lenoir. The early one was the Carlime Hotel, and actually I don't know when Smith Crossroads Motel was built, probably the early 50s, 55.
I would say somewhere along there.
But this is another treasure from Frances, and she let me have this. And then everybody knows of the Holiday Inn, which was across the street and was actually built on probably part of the Smith property there. And it was called the Holiday Inn, which these are no more,
Right.
And
Well, the building of the Holiday Inn is still there, but it's Ramada now, I believe.
yeah.
Yeah. Shakespeare, once wrote a play called Measure for Measure. I believe he must have been around you, Bruce, when he did this. So why don't you tell us about some of these yardsticks that you've got?
Well, it's like I say, all of these places and businesses put these things out for kind of like advertisement. Now this right here is on the Lenoir Auto Parts, and they were on East Harper Avenue in Lenoir, and they had 2 phone numbers. And actually this was one of the earlier auto parts that was in this town. They've been around a long time, and I wondered for a long time of why these little holes in this thing.
Why are they?
I don't know that I'm gonna get the name of it. It's like a little part that goes in the motor when they're rebuilding the motors, and they would have these things sitting in this thing, and it's not a cylinder because it's too big. Their cylinders are too big, so I've forgotten what that word is. But it's a thing when you're rebuilding, and you can set those things in this right here.
Okay, I see. Okay, I believe Lenoir Auto Parts was located down the corner of East Harper and Penton Avenue, and I believe the News Topic advertising department is in the building that they once were in.
Well, they were in the building where the Domino's Pizza moved out of first.
I believe you're right.
And then they moved over there. And actually, if you think about it, there's 16 of these things, holes. So there were 2 per cylinder if it was an 8-cylinder.
Right.
So, that might help it a little bit. Okay, then we have the Tom Brooks Chevrolet, and this is their parts department. So they done the same thing. They put the holes in this thing to put those little old parts in so you could stand them up. And this is when they are, I think, first moved out on the Wilkesboro Boulevard. I don't believe it has an
Doesn't have an address, no.
But I'm pretty sure this is when they were moved out on the Wilkesboro Road that they handed this
And
out.
of course, they're still out there and still in business.
Right. They first bought out Fred Gaddy Chevrolet, moved it to Whitnall, got burnt out a couple of times, parts department one time, showroom another time, and that's when they built on the Wilkesboro Road out there. Now, we had a lot of building supplies and paint stores and, you know, things in Lenoir. And one of the more well-known paint stores, other than Sherwin-Williams, but locally, was the W.G. Cannon Paint Company. Right. And I believe this has a plaza number. It doesn't give the address, but, and I'm not sure. Now this one, we'll go ahead and show this. This is a yardstick on the W.G. Cannon, and it does give the address.
South Mulberry.
112 South Mulberry Street, Lenoir, North Carolina. So it would have been, that building is still there. It's across the street from H&R Block.
Okay.
It's on that side of the street right there, there's only 3 businesses that you could go to. One's a beauty shop, one is the Western Auto, and then this little building, which there's not been anything in that building in probably, I don't know, 12, 14, 15 years or maybe more. And then here's another one. This is just a different colored one. They advertise different kind of paints. And this one is a plaza number, but it doesn't give the address. So, you know, but they moved from there down on West Harper Avenue where the pawn shop is, in another building that caught on fire one night and exploded, and they built a new building. Mm-hmm. And now they're out on the Zacks Fork Road.
Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be East Harper where the pawn shop is?
Yeah, did I say west?
You said west, right.
Okay, I'm going from one to the other, so, but anyhow, let's see, here's a paint and varnish. So this is the...
Ron McGowan, right.
Yeah, the McGowan Hardware Store, and it was on 300 North Main Street.
Right. I remember that very well. My dad used to go in there, and I remember the Mr. McGowan's. I was just a little boy, but I do remember Dad going in because he knew them and would go in a few minutes when he came to town.
And you know, those McGowan brothers came out for hardware,
right.
And then they were on North Main Street there, close to where Kroll's was, and then eventually they moved up on way up on North Main Street across from the Monument Place on that corner right there.
Okay.
I think it's called the Rex House now.
Right.
Now, I don't guess we can do anything without saying something about Hudson.
No, and certainly we want to include Hudson.
Absolutely. And this is the Hudson Hardware Company. And that's been in Hudson down there for many, many years. It's still there. It's on the right-hand side of the railroad tracks across the street from Thornburg Department Store. Then this is the only one that I have on Bernhardt and Siegel's. But this was when they opened in the Fairway Shopping Center, they opened another store, a second store.
Right.
And it was called Bernhardt and Siegel's of Hudson. And so this was a good find. I don't remember if somebody in Hudson gave me this at one time. So, but it's the only one I have on them. All right. Now this place was in business for a lot of many, many years.
Many, many years, right.
And matter of fact, they're still in business, but they're in a different location. They started out on Willow Street there.
Right.
And, or I think that's where they started. That's where I always remember them being. And so this is Boss Lumber Company. And this is 101 Willow Street, and they have no phone number. So but they sold a lot of different things in there along with building supplies. Now, this one is no longer in business. Been around for a long time, was the Caldwell Builders. and Builder's Supply.
Way out north of town.
Yeah. Matter of fact, on the old 321 going to Blowing
Right.
Rock up there on the left after you cross the railroad track. And this was owned by the Keys family.
Right.
And so this is no longer in existence. Now, I stopped one day and Mr. George Kroll gave me this. I was wanting something and he said, well, I think I have a yardstick. So I stopped at his house out there next to Cedar Rock and he gave me this. They sold major appliances, but you know, they sold some auto parts and tires. And you know, there where it was at on 309 Main Street, you know, that was the most cluttered store that there was in this town. But he and his dad knew where everything was.
Right.
They knew everybody that came in that store. And I think that was a plus for them.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people like that intimacy with the people that owned the store, and they come in and say, hey, how are you? And hadn't seen them in a year or so. So I bought several tires and several things bought my first bicycle from George Kroll.
Both of the Mr. Crowells were friends of my dad's, and again, I used to be taken in there when I was a little boy. I bought my first record player there and bought tires from there several times. And it's still always a pleasure to see Mr. George Jr. I run into him once in a while, and
Yeah.
we always talk about the old times.
Yeah, that's the way I am. I seen him at Ed Tudor's birthday party here last Sunday. He turned 90 years old, a baseball scout
Right.
that done the Avon Theater for several years. This is the Caldwell FCX service
Over at Whitnall.
in Whitnall. They still say Lenoir, but it's in Whitnall.
Right.
And they had farm and garden and lawn supplies. They had fertilizer and but I think they also sell cattle food and dog food and, you know, but it's no more. This right here is on the Woodbury Lumber Company. See, a lot of these building supplies put these things out. Now here's another one on Caldwell County, Caldwell Paint and Glass. Now this was the Jonases that had part of this because, you know, they had the
Right.
glass company and they were at 112 Mulberry Street. And then it became the paint store altogether.
That's a bright one.
That's a bright one. I don't know why they done that, but that's Kent Coffee Manufacturing Company in Lenoir, North Carolina. Then you had Behringer Oil Company, which was in Whitnall.
Whitnall also, right.
And it says, make it a rule to buy the big gallon. Now, tell me where the Crest Family Center was, John.
It was at the Crossroads Shopping Center, next to where Foothills Pharmacy is,
Right.
in that area now.
That was a big department store at
Yes,
one
I
time.
remember it.
It sure was. Okay, tell me where J.C. Penney's was in Lenoir.
Okay, J.C. Penney's was located on West Avenue, across from the county office building now.
Just above Fidelity Insurance Company.
Right. A good department store. And okay, Bruce, again, you might want to tell the people your phone number in case somebody may find a yardstick in the closet or some other treasure you'd like to have.
Okay, yeah. You know, one thing I would like to say is that I was in Charlotte at a big antique show down there. They call it Extravaganza. There's over 10,000 dealers there and there's 75,000 people there. And I was way in a back corner, back in the back lot, and there was a man came up to me from Hudson that said he liked what we done.
Well, we're glad to hear that, aren't we?
Now, it's amazing that far off that people recognize.
Right.
And I get so many phone calls of people that like what we're doing. They're interested, and it tickles them to see some of this old stuff, you know.
Right.
So, you know, keep the phone calls coming. And if, you know, sometimes somebody wants to see some of this stuff, then give me a call and come by the house. You know, it doesn't bother me. So, but my number is 754-7330. I'm listed in the phone book as T. Bruce Craig.
Okay, we also have similar items to this at the Caldwell Heritage Museum. And we're open on Tuesday through Friday from 10 o'clock a.m. until 4:30 p.m. and 10 till 3 on Saturday. We'd be glad for you to come by and see what we have here at the museum as well. There is no admission charge when you come here too. Bruce, this has been a good visit, and I hope we can get back together again soon. Perhaps you'll bring some more things to show us again.
Well, I look forward to it, and I hope someday to do one on baseball in Lenoir. and also on the Lenoir High School and the band, might be our next show.
All right, we hope, we'll look forward to that. Again, if you have items that you want to call Bruce, or if you want to call us here at the museum, 758-4004, we'll be glad to pass the message on to Bruce. Thank you again for watching Caldwell Today. This program was produced by the Caldwell County Public Information Office and the Caldwell Heritage Museum.
This one right here is a real popular bowl. It's called Families at Least One Bowl. And this is a 25.
Please visit our Caldwell Heritage Museum, 112 Vaden Street, Lenoir, North Carolina, now in association with Lenoir and Caldwell County History on Facebook.